This story is true, and it's one of the most bizarre combinations of paranormal events and detective work that helped solve who the murderer was in this case. Teresita Basa was a 47-year-old woman who was found brutally murdered in her apartment, but she was also the woman who helped solve who her murderer was. Hi everyone, my name's Yasmin and I'll be making videos about anything that's a little bit scary or disturbing in nature. And if you'd like to keep watching, then please like my video and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. I will be posting a new video every week as well. Teresita Basa was born on the 13th of March 1929 to parents Pedro and Socorro Basa, who were both business owners, and she was from a wealthy family. She was an only child and her parents just absolutely adored her. Her parents being wealthy gave her lots of opportunities, and she decided to go to uni and study music. She completed her studies in music in the Philippines, but after this she just wanted to sort of travel the world and she wanted to live somewhere else, so she moved to the States and specifically moved to Chicago. She was a very talented pianist and she wanted to continue her music studies in the States, but instead she studied respiratory therapy. And this was just another interest to her. She was still passionate about piano, but she just wanted something a little bit different in her life. She would also still give free piano lessons to any children in the neighborhood as well. She was described as being someone that was really caring and intelligent and also just really lovely to be around in general. She never really mixed up with the wrong crowd, which is why this story is so sad and it was so unexpected for everyone in Teresita's life. On the 21st of February 1977, it was just a regular day for Teresita. She went to work at the Edgewater Hospital, and at around 5:30 in the afternoon she started driving back and went to her apartment, which was situated on the 51st floor. She locked the door behind her and just started settling in for a nice relaxing night. At around 7:10 that evening, her friend Ruth gave her a call and they just had a normal conversation. They discussed some tickets that they were arranging for a theatre in the future. Teresita also mentioned that there was a guest coming over later on that night. She didn't mention them by name, and Ruth didn't really push either. She didn't think it was unusual at all. The conversation went on for a little bit and Teresita mentioned that she actually needs to tidy up the house a bit for her guest. So they said goodbye, and at around 7:30 that evening, somebody else called. But this call was somebody who is still unidentified to this day. It lasted around 20 minutes, and about less than an hour later, her neighbours on the 51st floor of her apartment building started to smell something burning. The apartment manager was quickly notified and they gave the fire department a key to enter Teresita's apartment. They quickly extinguished the fire, but they noticed that the apartment was just a complete mess. Everything was just ransacked, clothes everywhere, and the fire originated from a mattress that was in her bedroom. Thinking that this was just really unusual, they lifted the mattress and to their horror, they found Teresita's naked body with a butcher's knife embedded in her chest. This was obviously now a murder investigation and police were quickly called onto the scene. Detectives Joseph Sachula and Lee Eplin were assigned to the case, and immediately they noticed that there was no forced entry into the apartment. They also looked into why Teresita's body was nude, and they initially thought that there would be a sexual assault of some kind, but there was no evidence found at all to suggest this. It seemed like it was all just a bit staged. So apart from this, they had no leads, nothing at all. The murderer did not leave any evidence behind, and it took 6 months of them looking into every little aspect in her apartment, and they could not find any reason for why she was murdered. But then something truly strange and completely unexplainable happened. Remy Chua was a colleague of Teresita's, and she was also a respiratory therapist at the Edgewater Hospital. She claimed to be possessed by Teresita's spirit, and she also claimed that she knew who the murderer was. Dr. Jose Chua was Remy's husband at the time, and he was a psychiatrist who also worked at the Edgewater Hospital, and this account came from him because Remy couldn't actually remember when she was possessed by Teresita's spirit. one night after Remy had a really long shift at the hospital, she came back home and she just was exhausted. She lay down on the couch and had a nap. During her nap though, Jose was at home and he started to hear some strange noises. He went a little bit closer and he actually heard that Remy was sleep talking. So sleep talking is pretty common, a lot of people do it, but Remy's never really done it before. And another thing that just didn't really fit in with the whole situation was the fact that she wasn't speaking in English either. She was speaking in Tagalog, which is the native language of the Philippines. Jose described Remy as being in a trance-like state and he just could not wake her up. So he just started to listen to what she was saying, and this was the translation. "Doctor, I would like to ask for your help. The man who murdered me is still at large." And she proceeded to claim that she was Teresita Basa and that he needs to contact the police because she knows who murdered her. This came as a huge shock to Jose because he wasn't really expecting his wife to tell him what had happened to Teresita or talk about her death at all. He thought maybe it's because they were colleagues that she was starting to have these dreams, because it just started to psychologically affect her. When Remy woke up, he confronted her about it, and Remy had absolutely no memory of the situation. She just cannot remember. She doesn't even remember dreaming about it. But the second time this happened, Remy again claimed that she was Teresita Basa, and she said that Alan Showery took her life, and he even stole some jewelry that was now sitting in his apartment. This really loose paranormal experience was explained to the police, and they did think it was a little bit ridiculous at the time, but they thought, you know, we'll look into Alan Showery anyway because there's no other leads. There's nothing else that people have presented to them. And they just wanted to see if he had a criminal record to start off with. Alan Showery was a 29-year-old male who also worked at the Edgewater Hospital. He worked alongside Teresita and Remy, and he was also a respiratory therapist. He was actually fired from work about a week before Teresita's murder. I couldn't find any information as to why he was fired in the first place though. The detectives also made a connection between a piece of evidence that was found in Teresita's home, which was her last diary entry that said, "Buy theatre tickets for A.S," which could have actually been Alan Showery's initials. Since this link between Alan and Teresita was now made, they decided to just look into Alan's criminal record. There they found that he actually did have a conviction for burglary. He was actually also known to be a very heavy drinker and could also be quite violent at times. These facts allowed detectives to take this investigation a little bit further, and they wanted to actually search his house. Alan lived with his pregnant girlfriend Yanka at the time, and detectives showed up at their house saying that they were going to search the property in relation to the Teresita Basa murder. Yanka couldn't really see the connection there, but again, they let them search the house. What detectives found there was a piece of incriminating evidence that changed Alan's life forever. One was a pearl ring and one was a jade pendant. These were taken away, and Teresita's friends and family confirmed that these belonged to her. Yanka was brought in for questioning about these two jewelry items, and she claimed that she didn't actually know where they were from, that Alan gave them to her as a Christmas present. And Alan was also questioned about it. When Alan was presented with the undeniable evidence that these two items belonged to Teresita, he confessed that he did murder her. Alan said that on the night of the 21st of February, he went to Teresita's house to fix a broken TV that she had. Teresita was such a kind person that she wanted to help anyone out around her really, and she knew that Alan was struggling financially. So she had an agreement with him to say that he could do some odd jobs for her and she would just help him out. So this was just one of those arrangements that they had. Alan fixed the TV and he said goodbye. Teresita locked her apartment door and, you know, she thought that she was going to be alone for the rest of the night. But then Alan said that he had a thought of robbing her. So he knocked on her door again, and of course Teresita opened the door and let him in. And this is when he brutally attacked Teresita. He then proceeded to rob her of all her belongings and just completely ransacked her house. And he set fire to the mattress in order to burn evidence that he was ever there and that he murdered her. He admitted that he took the jewelry and that he took off her clothes to make it look like she was sexually assaulted. This case was taken to trial and presented before a jury, but it was dismissed because they couldn't come to an agreement. They were presented with evidence that was of paranormal nature, which isn't really solid evidence, and there was also nothing at the crime scene to suggest that Alan did commit the crime. Before the second trial, Alan pleaded guilty, and this was under the recommendation of his lawyer because there was a chance that the jury would find him guilty this time round. So he was sentenced to 14 years in prison for arson, robbery, and murder. He only served 5 of those years and he was released, but since then no one knows his whereabouts and whether he's alive today or not. If it weren't for the apparent possession of Remy Chua, this case would have never been solved. It's one of the only cases where paranormal evidence has been used and led to someone getting convicted for a crime. There are some holes in this though, and some people believe that the possession was just made up by Remy Chua and her husband Jose Chua because they may have actually been covering up for their part in the murder as well. It does sound super suspicious that Remy and her husband were involved in finding out who the murderer was. There is a chance that they were hiding something, but again, nothing has been revealed, and Alan himself even admitted to the murder. But in saying that, there's probably aspects of it that we just don't know about and we will never know about. And of course, I just want to say thank you so much if you watched the whole video all the way to the end. I will be posting every single week, so hit the notification bell to get a reminder, and I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe as well. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.